Steam NextFest is wrapped up and I want to talk about the results that I got for the demo for my golf adventure game called the Bold Bogey. It largely went okay for me, but before we get to the numbers, let's break down how everything happened. Leading up to NextFest, I had to decide what I wanted to show to players to help them get an idea of how the game would play out. I ended up going with a standard approach of using the first chunk of the game that includes the tutorial. That way, I wouldn't have to build anything new or custom just for the demo. In hindsight, I should have done more, but more on that later. After exiting the tutorial, people could explore the first big open area, explore side levels, get into the first dungeon, and then stop them just after they got the first major upgrade. So it would leave the player feeling like, oh man, I just got this thing, I want to use it. Guess I got a wish list. So with that plan set in stone, I started bug fixing, optimizing, and polishing up that chunk of the game. The major mistake I made throughout this whole process was just not being nearly ready enough for everything. The build for my demo ended up taking much longer to polish than I had thought, and I had added a major mechanic to the game that needed more fine tuning. My friend had tested the game a couple weeks before, and I realized that the movement was still feeling a bit too slow outside of the fairway. So that's where spin entered. Spin allows you to control your ball's spin in the air and as well on the ground. And as much fun as it was, the game hadn't been built around it. And so that aspect was coming in hot. I'm glad I did put it in the game, as it's incredibly fun to use, and it's one of the things that people said they liked the most.
Okay, that is fucking cool. Oh my god, that's good. Am I becoming a car? That is awesome.
I finally got some playtests going about 3 days before NextFest, and the feedback I was getting was both incredibly valuable and terribly frustrating, as I'm sure most devs can relate.
I think some direction would be nice, because now I don't know what to do. I just keep on going in circles.
Some people would read a tutorial for how to do something, and then completely Men in Black style forget what they had just read 2 seconds ago.
So press the action, the space bar to interact with the certain things in the world, try it out.
It's hard to discern what is a response to my own bad design and, a child who got left behind. But ultimately, I learned you can't let ego get in the way of a player's experience. If they struggled for a reason. I thought that several of the mechanics in the demo that make the game much more approachable would help players, but they were just not remembering or understanding some of these mechanics. Like the respawn system and some of the various power-ups. Anytime you launch your ball, you set off a respawn point, and if you miss your shot, you can just self-destruct and respawn back at it. But people just kept forgetting about this and rolling all the way back to the spot where they were before. On the bright side, once people started understanding the game and getting familiar with it, they started to have a good time.
Oh wow. This I like.
I rushed to get some fixes and last minute polish in after these playtests, and started getting the stuff on Steam ready for the game, which I didn't realize I needed to approve a separate app page with all these assets and stuff and had to get it approved and all that sort of jazz. Thought I had understood the whole process and major dates, but some stuff slipped through the cracks. But alas, February 23 rolled around and NextFest was finally here. So here are the numbers. It ended up being around the realistic expectations I had given for myself, and the playtests I had done before definitely honed those expectations even more into reality. The biggest takeaways I had from the event and the demo were, my tutorial was not good enough. The average playtime for the demo was around 8 minutes, and the demo has around 1 to 2 hours of content. So I was pretty bummed to see that players probably weren't even leaving the tutorial, especially because people who actually played a substantial portion of the demo seemingly had a good time with it.
What? This is pretty cool.
The game needed way more direction for the player.
Being able to look at an area and say, I have done all the things here. Because it is very fun to move around. It's just that sometimes it's easy to lose direction.
I'm one of those capital G gamers that don't like when a game tells me where to go and what to do, so a lot of Bogey is designed with a sense of freedom for the player to explore however they want. However, there's still just a ton of ways I can help the player without being overbearing that I just didn't think about beforehand. Let me break down some of the major things that I changed and added. The big one I've been working on is a journal. You're going to be going across this big world with all these different side levels and batteries and things that you're collecting, but there was no way to track it. So I added in a way to see how many batteries are in a particular area of the world, and it even updates when you get new powers. So when you get out of a dungeon, you'll look at the codex and be like, oh snap, there's 4 new batteries that I can get back in that first area. I even added a watchtower that you can interact with to get a better lay of the land and help triangulate where you've been. It also made sense to have some sort of warp system in place to help get around the world. Some levels are tricky to get into, and it sucks if you have to redo that just to get back to a level that you may have felt was too hard for you at that point. It still probably needs some work, but it feels like a nice thing to have. Also, people kept asking for some sort of leaderboard system for time trials or whatever, and this kind of seems like the first step towards making that more realistic. I also moved the upgrades here to the journal. People were a little confused because the upgrades you bought in the store didn't actually cost the batteries that when you bought something, which is because I had originally had it so you would have to spend batteries to get these, but it clashed with the idea that you need a certain amount to open up major areas, and I didn't want people to feel torn between progressing the main objective and getting new upgrades. So now you can unlock new powers whenever you want. I'm also adding in some small tutorial sections whenever you get new power-ups to help teach the player about different ways they'd be useful. A lot of the time people would unlock an upgrade and then literally never use it, even though the upgrade is like mega powerful. Hopefully these sections, along with a completely streamlined tutorial and a number of quality of life additions, will go a long way towards getting players comfortable with the game. Here's some of the other quality of life stuff I've added. Portals now have their level name above them and a check mark to let you know if you got the battery in there. I fixed the guideline to be even more accurate and added an X at the end where you would hit something. There's a main objective in your journal that updates based on people you talk to, which I may eventually expand to a rumor system to help keep track of other things as well. I also added a respawn icon that shows up when you get far away from your respawn point, and just in general there's a ton of more people and things pointing you in the right direction for some stuff. I also added controls to the HUD on certain screens and in certain situations to help the player out. I'm going to be putting out a final update for the demo that has a lot of this stuff in it, so be sure to give it a shot if you haven't yet. I wish I had done some things differently for NextFest, but ultimately it ended up being a positive experience. The game will now be significantly better because of all the great feedback, and the idea that people connected with it at all brings me such an immense, fulfilling feeling that I now feel even more energized for the final road to release. Thanks for watching.